Hi, this is Dan, and I'm going to make a video about why am I a guru basher, or why am I an anti-teacher teacher. I actually made a video. This is my second take. The first one, like halfway through, something happened where my voice got out of sync and I started sounding like this. Also, my cats were like scratching boxes and stuff. It was all distracting. So this is take two, why I'm a guru basher. Alright, so I'll just kind of give my story, which I've given before, as an example. Because I think people are pretty much the same. Not 100%, you know, there's different stories, but... So just to kind of keep it short, that first video was like 14 minutes long, and I'll try to make this one shorter. You know, growing up, I was kind of depressed, kind of lonely, kind of sad, anxious. You know, eventually I kind of figured out I had OCD and anxiety disorders and things like that, but nothing horribly serious. I wasn't suicidal or anything like that. Just kind of wasn't happy with life. And, you know, negative feelings come up and go, and I'd be afraid of dying. I'd be afraid of getting sick. I would just kind of feel overall crappy. You know, and this continued, and as I got older, in my 20s, I kind of just got tired of this whole cycle. What kind of spurred it on was I was a bad hypochondriac. So I was always seeing things on my body like bruises and bumps and worrying like, oh my God, that's leukemia, that's cancer. So one day I was just noticing these red spots on my stomach, which are just normal, I don't know, things that happen on your skin. And I thought, oh my God, that's leukemia. So I finally thought, you know, enough of this. Enough of this. I went to see a psychiatrist, started to take medications, and it helped very much. But anyways, the point is that, so these negative emotions and thoughts and feelings come up, and they don't feel good. So you want to get rid of them. Well, eventually I ended up drinking pretty heavily. I would work all day long, and, you know, anxieties would come up, occasionally thoughts of death, like, oh my God, I'm going to die, what's the point of life? Then at nighttime I would go home and just start drinking. And I would get really drunk and become numb and no longer be worried about this kind of stuff. Then the next day I would go back to work and I would be anxious again and hypochondriac and have fears of death, and then go home at night and get drunk. So it just keeps repeating this cycle. Well, at some point I kind of learned about spirituality, Eastern spirituality. I got interested in Zen, Rajneesh/Osho and his teachings, and I started to meditate. You know, and this kind of went in cycles where I was interested in it and I wasn't, and I was, you know, a heavy drinker again. And so basically what the pattern is that these negative feelings and emotions come up. I didn't like it, tried to get rid of them. What can I do to get rid of this stuff? And then, you know, I learned and heard about enlightenment. So what's enlightenment? Well, my idea of enlightenment was that it was this permanent state where either those things never even came up, or if they did, well, they just didn't bother you, right? You're kind of floating above and transcending all these negative things. Like maybe they were happening, but you were aloof. So that's what I wanted. You know, I wanted this permanent release. You know, because you can get temporary fixes, but no, you want the permanent thing. So when I got interested in spirituality, especially non-dual spirituality, what I did is I started reading all this stuff. Ramana, Nisargadatta, I Am That, over and over and over. Watching videos, you know, videos of Muji, Adyashani. I would just watch videos of everybody. I would be at work and I'd be watching whoever. Paul Hederman. I was looking for, you know, new people because, geez, this person's not doing it. Maybe this person will do it. And there were certain people I liked a lot, like Muji, because I would watch Muji and he's funny and make me feel good. Then, you know, I'd go home at night and I'd read I Am That again. But these things, they just create these temporary releases or reprieves from these negative emotions and thoughts, right? You're anxious or depressed, you don't know what's going on, what's the meaning of life, I'm going to die anyways, so what's the point? That kind of stuff. So you seek this release by seeking out teachers and teachings that are going to make you feel good, right? And the bottom line is people want to feel good. Makes sense? I want to feel good. So I kind of saw that this is just becoming this repeating cycle. And I kind of got to the point where I was thinking, do I want to keep watching Muji videos for the next 10 years? Do I want to keep going to satsangs for the next 20 years? How many more times am I going to read I Am That? Right? So what happens is that these teachings and these gurus, they give you these temporary good feelings, which isn't a bad thing, but they create a cycle of dependence where you need to keep going back to them and back to them and back to them. Also, it kind of holds out this promise that there's some sort of permanent state called enlightenment where you transcend all this stuff. Because I think deep down nobody really wants to have to keep going and going and going back and back and back, right? Nobody really wants to have to keep reading I Am That over and over and over. See, I thought that if I read I Am That for the 20th time, finally something will click. Something's going to snap. I'm going to have that lightning bolt of Satori, right? So that never came, that lightning bolt of Satori. And I've kind of been at this for off and on 20 years, right? Starting way back when I was in college and would meditate and read about Zen and read about Rajneesh. So why isn't this happening? Am I stupid? Am I doing something wrong? And then the other thing is thinking about having some sort of permanent enlightened state. I saw that, is there something here permanent that could have or hold a permanent state? Like enlightenment or awakening? So we have the body, obviously, and the skin cells are regenerating all the time. Things are changing. You're not the same body that you were 10 years ago. You're not the same body that you're going to be 10 years from now. So obviously the body's not permanent, constantly changing. So what else is there? There's thoughts. There's the mind. I'm not really sure if there's such a thing as the mind. I mean, there's thoughts, but is there some sort of container called the mind for all this stuff? But, the thoughts are coming and going. There's ideas, there's beliefs, there's emotions. But these things just come and go. So what's that permanent thing that could become enlightened? Well, I think it's just an idea, right? There's this idea of a Dan. And this idea holds things like the body and like the thoughts and like the mind and says, this is Dan. Well, I don't really see anything outside of that idea that is this permanent thing called Dan. So the question then is, can an idea become enlightened? Does an idea need to be liberated? So what happens is then you just get caught up in this dependence of seeking out these teachings by these gurus to get these temporary feelings that are reprieves from all the negative emotions that we don't like. Then you go back and you go back and you keep going to satsangs year after year. So is it helping? Well, I guess you could say, yeah, it helps to give you these temporary good feelings. Someone asked the question on Facebook in one of my groups earlier, well, what would you tell someone that came to you and said, Dan, I have these negative emotions, feelings, I'm confused about life, what's the point, what's the meaning, here's Pepper again. What would you tell them? Well, I guess what I would tell them is, first of all, if these feelings and emotions are so bad that you can't really function, you don't want to get out of bed in the morning, I would recommend going to see a psychiatrist or psychologist. If it's not to that point where you can't function, where it's just you're having these nagging feelings of angst and depression and questions. I don't know. I'm not really sure, because I don't think there's anything or here controlling all that stuff. I don't think you can control it. Can you control it? Can you stop negative emotions and feelings from coming? You see, one thing I saw, I mean, did I see it or did it just happen, was that these fears of death would just kind of pop up here and there randomly during the course of the day. I'd be doing something, I'd be all happy and going about my daily activities. All of a sudden this thought would come up, oh, you're going to die, what's the point? I mean, you're going to die in the end, so what's the point of doing all this stuff? It would make me feel bad and crappy, and I'd try to do something to get rid of it. And it would go away and maybe not come back for a couple days, but then come back again. Now, if I was controlling it, I wouldn't allow that to come in the first place, because it's not a particularly a pleasant experience. And if I could make it go away, I would make it go away. As soon as it came up, I would just say, go away. Well, obviously I can't do that. Otherwise I would. So what I kind of saw is it comes, it goes, it comes, it goes. Okay. The analogy I've used in the past is that this video is going to be 14 minutes long too. The analogy I used in the past is that you have someone come pounding on your door every day, and it's someone that you don't like. They're a very negative, violent person. You don't want to let them in, so you're pushing against the door. They come in and they get in anyways because they kick the door in. They come in and they start, causing trouble and yelling and insulting you. And then you're telling them, get out of here. You're trying to push them out, and then after about a half an hour, you finally push them out and they leave. And then they come back next day, the day after, same thing. They pound on the door. They try to kick it in, and you do the same thing. You try to keep them out. They get in anyways. Eventually, they leave. Well, at some point, they come kicking on the door and pounding. Just open the door and let them in. Tell them, hey, have a seat. Would you like a cup of tea? If you're going to insult me, go ahead, say what you like. I'm here, I'm listening. Now, of course, are you actually doing that? Is that a conscious choice? Well, maybe, maybe not. It kind of feels like it, but if there's no free choice or free will, then it's just happening, right? So, to try to cut this off so it's not a 15-minute video, the reason why I guru bash, let's put things in perspective here. I mean, spirituality gurus aren't, the worst thing in the world. You pay, $10 to go to a satsang and listen to someone talk. There's much worse things I could be getting upset about. But the reason why I guru bash is because I think it's just creating a cycle of dependence. You have these negative emotions and feelings which come up naturally. They just come and they go. And then there's a desire to get rid of them. And so you go to a satsang, or you read a teaching, or you watch a video. You get rid of these negative feelings for a little while, and then they come back up again, and then you watch another video or go to another satsang. I just don't see anything permanent here that can gain some sort of enlightened permanent state that transcends all human emotions. And at this point I don't really care, and I don't really have a desire right now to transcend all these things. It's true that they don't come up much anymore. They still do occasionally, but feelings of depression, sadness, confusion, but they come and they go, right? I just don't have this desire now, and I don't make the effort to try to get rid of them, basically. I'm not trying to push them away, and I'm not trying to gain some sort of permanent state where they no longer come up, because I don't think that's possible. Now, some people do, and some people claim that they have transcended this stuff, and some people believe it's possible, that by doing certain practices you can. Well, if you believe that, that's fine. If that's the case, what I'm saying is kind of moot. And I'm not trying to be facetious, because if you really believe that's true and can be done, then you should try to do it. You should find people that claim that they've done it and do your best. Personally, I think it's going to be frustrating, but if that's what you want to do, if that's your hobby, there's much worse hobbies, and here's my new cat, Pochi. So that's why I guru bash, and believe me, I don't hate any of these gurus. In fact, I correspond with one of them. He just sent me a message, and I think we're friends. I poke fun at my other friends too, and point out things I think they do that are silly, and I do silly things all the time too. So this is just my explanation of why Dan is such a nasty guru basher.